Welcome to Season 1 of Bards Atlas. Tonight's episode was inspired by concept work done by Riot Games. Enjoy.
Beautiful. Huh. Neat. Hello. Hello. Why, is that you, Eli? You have such a strong voice. Oh, well, thank you, Echo. That's very kind of you to say. You don't have to go there. No, it really is. It's such a strong voice, it must be great for narrating stories. Oh, well, yeah, I guess. That's what people say. Know any good stories to tell about this place? Did the computer put you up to this, Echo? Geez, it's hard to relax around here. Oh, now, Eli, the sooner you get this over with, the sooner you can get back to relaxing and talking to yourself like a crazy person. Okay, I see your point. Inner monologue. Computer, open a new submission.
Incoming message. New database submission imminent. Bard designation.
It's Eli. And Eli's Echo.
Log ID.
Log 0582-01. Subject, the bridge in the sky.
Compiled. Begin submission.
This is a short biography. One of the, most eccentric biographies ever written on Galdor. I'll try to do the author justice. Ahem. Most people have heard the stories of the Pravens, the winged people who built elaborate stone cities in the sky. Many have heard trumped-up tales of majesty and beauty, which is really dumb because the Pravens were just regular people, but, with wings that turned them into huge jerks. Although their city is deteriorating and the people have ascended to, new heights, not every Praven is so pedantic or detached from history. In fact, one Praven once almost saved the entire civilization, and only partially failed. This is his story. The story of Purvis. Purvis was a curious case. The local medicine man held him for a full month before releasing him to his parents, claiming he was sure to die any moment. When he finally did release him, his parents were shocked to find that they agreed. Purvis was a lost cause. The reason for their mortal conclusion was simple. Purvis had been born without wings. Yes, that's right. A Praven who couldn't fly. It's like a fish who couldn't swim. Only maybe the fish could walk around a little bit, but the point is, it was bad. Real bad. His parents were distraught. They encountered every sort of existential crisis. How could this happen? What did we do wrong? Should I have stayed in school? Was it something I ate? Whose bad genes are these? Definitely not mine. It's from your side of the family. But no amount of guilt, blaming, or self-shaming could fix their son, nor make this story about them. And so they did what any reasonable people would do. And they threw him out on the street as soon as he was able to say, "Mama, no!" Although Purvis didn't know it at first, that proved to be the best example of tough love parenting ever recorded. Because of his imminent death by starvation, he learned a lot of skills the other kids might not have learned. Because he always had to steal bread, he learned how to take initiative and assert himself. Because he had to flee capture, he always got his daily exercise. And because he had no wings, he'd often get caught. So he developed some acute social skills while negotiating with the authorities. But most of all, he learned to hide. And the best place to hide was in the sky bridges. Lots of folks don't know, the Pravens are descended from regular people that didn't always have wings. It was a slow process. So long ago, the ones who did have wings started building the city upward, and they made these bridges that normal, awesome, wingless people couldn't easily make. But once all the people had wings, they didn't really need the bridges anymore. So they sort of let them fall into ruin. And lots of these bridges aren't really bridges so much as they are tunnels and houses and structures that just happen to stretch over a chasm between mountains. But what did that mean for Purvis? Well, it meant for some really awesome hiding places. The bridges became his hideaway, his happy place. The smell of dusty, moldy stone, rotting wood, and all sorts of diseased rodents became as the sun and the air and the rain and the grass. He had to watch his step. Long deserted corridors could collapse in an instant. A single feather drop could cave a floor, leading to a deadly 15,000-foot drop. Sure, it was dangerous, but it was his playground. Up there, the people had forgotten their roots, who they once were, how to survive in a life without wings. And not just that, they had forgotten art, science, philosophy. The plateaus and caves the Pravens had repurposed, though they bore some resemblance to their old homes, were a far cry from the beautiful, sprawling city in the sky, known, ironically, as the Undercity. And no one knew that city better than Purvis. Down below, he found stained glass murals. He found mountains of leather tomes with so much information he could never hope to digest it all, although he certainly tried a few times when food became scarce. He also found mechanical devices powered by electricity and steam, things that the Pravens had abandoned and forgotten about. None of it seemed to matter as much once people could fly. When you can fly in a mountainous region, you're never short on housing. You're never lacking for new places to find food. You're always close to the sun and the stars, so you don't ever feel oppressed, and have no need for the kind of government their ancestors needed. But Purvis couldn't always find food. When he found things people wanted, they were often able to take them and leave. And when he tried to unite people for his safety, they lacked the same motivation. So, Purvis vowed to become a master of his ancestors' ancient world. Step 1. Make a map. He scoured the entire Undercity complex, finding the quickest and safest routes to any place he needed to go. Step 2. Defend himself. He learned about all the technology he could, and learned to set traps around his things and, eventually, even be able to quickly scale the mountainside. He occasionally found technology that might have enabled him to glide or to fly, but he usually preferred to burn those things for warmth. Step 3, and this was the biggest. Create a problem that only a unified, civilized, Praven society could solve. This would force them to form a system of government that sought to protect people, and maybe that people would include him. But what could that problem be? This was the crucial conundrum he pondered, whilst in the glow of the fire, of course, the night that the Beetle Men showed up. He was scared at first, as he sat in one of the lower hanging buildings, only a mile or so off the ground, to feel the floor rumble and quake around him. Grabbing his trusty junk sling, he loaded up an especially spicy casserole he'd regretted stealing and prepared to fire at the first person he saw. As he stared at the skyward entrances, expecting winged homeowners to angrily descend upon him, seeking to reclaim their food, he was surprised to feel something pinch his back toe. With a jolt and a scream, he stepped back, launching the casserole all over the ground. Oh, hey, thanks there, fella," said a voice from underneath the terribly spicy dish. "Oh, you're welcome," said Purvis. He continued to watch as the casserole dissolved before him into seemingly thin air, until finally it was revealed that the voice had a source. A large beetle. Well, large for a beetle, but small for a talking individual. Purvis, now mostly assured of his condition of mental illness, conversed with the strange beetle man, learning all about who he was, how he could have such a portent for especially spicy foods, and what had caused the thunderous shaking on the floor from only a moment before. The answers were quite expectantly simple. His name was Philo, or Phil for short. He enjoyed the casserole dish because he was used to flavorless Praven excrement for food, or poop for short. And he was part of a scouting commission on Operation Praven, also known as Scoop for short, which may or may not have eaten away several Foundation pillars. Wait, Purvis remarked, an idea forming in his quite possibly deluded brain. There are more of you? Oh yeah, a whole army of us. We was hoping to scout a better route to more of this flavorless Praven poop. That's, I guess the main point behind Operation Scoop. Just then, a glowing incandescent bulb appeared above Purvis's head. Oh, looks like the power is back on, exclaimed Purvis. But then Purvis got an idea. Wait, what if I told you that you could get access to all the Praven's excrements before it became excrement? Purvis asked, with a devilish handsome smirk. Oh, I'm all ears, fella, Phil said with what was probably a grin. Tough to read, these beetles. But, what's a guy like you helping us out for anyhows? Purvis's eyes narrowed, and he bared his teeth as he began to chuckle. Why are we laughing? Why are you laughing? Revenge, said Purvis. And so, Purvis began planning the greatest pantry raid ever. An army of beetles descending upon their glorious food supply? That will get them listening, he thought. Of course, even as he told Phil all the fastest ways to get to the scattered caves, plateaus, and occasional man-made buildings that the Pravens now lived in, and provided them with a detailed map and synchronized plan of coordinated attack, he never actually intended for the Praven's pantries to be successfully raided by the beetles. No, that would be too good for them. He had something else in mind. Remember the third step in his life plan? That whole bit about getting the Pravens to form a government that would stand up for the wingless guy? He finally had the external threat that he needed. The beetles were the perfect problem. So Purvis gave Phil the plan of attack, and Phil vowed to return with his beetle army in 1 day's time for the attack. This gave Purvis just enough time to get things ready. This would have to look good if he expected there to be any chance of it working. First, he gathered up all the old-world supplies that he could. Portable electricity holders, large elastic slings, and lots of adhesive bonding strips. All proved no trouble at all in collecting. With the help of old machines he had fixed up over the years, he managed to gather everything in half a day. He spent the next half of the day using the supplies to rearm all of his best old traps. Slings that fired nets that stunned people, trip wires that caved in sections of tunnel, swinging pendulums of death. And one more new, special trap set up in the antechamber, where the beetles would wait on his mark to begin the attack. It was all marvelous. Only he knew where all the traps were, and only he could navigate the old complex of tunnels and bridges and buildings that made up the Undercity, without ending up dead, or worse. Finally, he rounded up some of the wealthiest and most respected Pravens. Wealth and respect these days was measured by how great a person was at something stupid, like flying. While the Pravens who lived around here lacked any sort of civil council, wherever problems did arise, these men and women would usually be counted on to throw their weight around and put a stop to it. These were the top of the top. There was Carrymore. She could carry the most stuff while flying, and so people looked up to her. Then there was Fly Pharaoh. He had flown further than any Praven before him. Then there was Shadowwing, Strongwing, and Fakewing, who people liked for some reason. Anyways, Purvis gathered them together and informed them that he had come across a beetle scout who planned to raid everyone's food stores that night. He also told them about how he'd barely survived the attack, and he realized that only the mighty, winged Pravens could save everyone. "Those monsters!" Carrymore shrilled. "I'll carry all the beetles out of here." Fly Pharaoh crowed. "Indeed, I shall carry them to a land far from here." "Let's shroud the beetles in darkness," Shadowwing seethed. "Let's blow them back to oblivion," Strongwing cried. "Let's pretend to be something we're not," Fakewing sobbed. "No," Purvis said. "They're coming through the Undercity. You won't be able to fly as well down there, but if I lead you through it, we can get to the beetles before they reach the surface." "Very well," Fly Pharaoh agreed as he stroked his feathered beard. The others joined in as well, and they followed Purvis into the deep, dark Undercity, vanishing below the uppermost entrance into a dark, moonlit chasm. "Perfect," Purvis said quietly. If he had timed things correctly, the beetles would attack soon. Purvis led the winged fools deep into the Undercity. He got them past the traps and all sorts of death contraptions of his, although they had no idea the kind of dangers they were facing. Most of them believed the technology of their ancestors to be useless death junk anyways, so it wasn't hard to explain the presence of giant electrical slings, or even a swinging pendulum of death, or 6. Eventually, they reached the central antechamber, an old hall where the government used to meet to talk about pressing issues, Purvis knew. As they walked into the stone and tile center, the others stretched their wings. "Finally, some space to fly," they said, as they did a few circles around the stained glass rotunda. While they did, Purvis walked around, making sure everything was ready for the Big Bang. "You know," Purvis said as he searched around old, rotted wood pews, "our ancestors used to meet here to talk about pressing issues." Shadowwing laughed. "Issues? Like how they couldn't fly? Bah!" Purvis tried not to snap back. "No," he said through gritted teeth, as he confirmed the presence of several hundred beetles hiding just where he'd showed them to. "Issues like war and resources and technology and stuff. Important issues." He continued to slowly stalk around as Carrymore landed on the mezzanine balcony overlooking the room. "What could be more important than flying?" Purvis finished looking low, and then stood to face all his winged foes. "I don't know," he said. "Maybe beetle swarms?" As he finished on a very well-rehearsed cue, the floors were suddenly covered in a black, moving ocean of beetles. They streamed down from the ceilings, from the walls, and from every entrance and exit, converging on the unsuspecting Pravens in the center. "I can't carry them all!" Carrymore yelled as they climbed up her feet and her arms. "I can't get far enough away!" Fly Pharaoh whined as a giant hand formed by beetles pulled him back down to the ground. All of the Pravens were slowly being overtaken by the beetles, who were far too numerous for any one Praven to stand a chance. As Purvis watched, he grinned an evil grin, then slowly slid an old gas mask over his face. Then, slowly walking backwards, he pulled a string behind him. "Don't worry," Purvis said. "I've got your backs." As the string fell to the ground, a small chain reaction of gas explosions went on throughout the room. Gas puff after gas puff poofed until the entire room was covered in a thin, milky white gas cloud. Purvis stood and waited. Waited for the beetles and the Pravens alike to all pass out from the gas. "I'm so weakened," Strongwing said. "I think I'm blacking out," Shadowwing said. "I made these wings out of wood," Fakewing confessed, before his head sunk below the tide of beetles. "Now that the Pravens are out," Purvis muttered quietly. "Any second now." Purvis said, as Shadow Wing's black wings were being chewed off. Huh, must take longer to affect beetles, Purvis reassured himself, as Carrymore's head floated past him on a sea of beetles. Any second, they'll all pass out. Okay, this isn't working. Phil, Purvis called out, now alarmed. What's up, fella? Looks like your plan worked out perfectly, Phil said from somewhere nearby. Yeah, but I don't remember saying to eat these guys, Purvis said, confused. Yeah, we got a little carried away, I guess, but hey, it's not like you were friends anyway. After the beetles had finished their feast, they thanked Purvis and continued on with the plan. Purvis's traps weren't really designed for beetles, and he hadn't really counted on the gas not working. So he was pretty powerless to stop them as they worked their way to the surface and executed the carefully coordinated attack Purvis had planned. As Purvis stood in the antechamber alone and in shock, he wondered if he had gone too far. Almost as if he had flown too close to the sun. Not that flying is cool, or makes for any sort of poetic metaphor. But as dawn broke, and he explored the ruined homes and witnessed shocked Praven survivors walking around in a stupor, their entire lives upended, he started to get a feeling. It was a strange feeling. One that continued to grow as the Pravens gathered together to form a coalition against this beetle menace. The feeling blossomed still as the Pravens began to retake the Undercity in hopes of reclaiming their lost history and learning the tools they needed to advance and protect their society. But whatever that feeling was, whether it was warmth, or happiness, or satisfaction, or maybe even empathy, that feeling dissipated when the Pravens got tired of getting tied up and snared in the traps that littered the Undercity and decided they should just fly away to a different part of the world, leaving Purvis all alone again. As he stood there alone, his pal Phil sitting on his hand, Purvis realized something, and he climbed to the uppermost part of the highest bridge, overgrown with jungle forest, and facing the canyon between the mountains, he screamed mightily, "I'm free!" before then jumping to his death.
End of submission. Submission status: fact, fiction, uncertain.
Well, it's a little hard to say, but I will actually go ahead and call it fact, near as far as I can tell. Obviously, there's a lot of creative embellishment going on, but the plateaus and caves around here do actually have fossilized beetles and beetle dung, as well as extremely old remains of the Pravens. Most of the Undercity is collapsed and overgrown, so it'll be hard to prove most of Purvis's story specifically until the dig team gets here. Although, there is one part I have to call into question. At the end of the story, Purvis jumps to his death, but, I'm looking at the original parchments I found this journal inked upon, and, it claims to be an autobiography. Again, hard to prove, but certainly seems like Purvis might have written this whole thing. Now, I actually brought a glider, so maybe I'll just glide down to the bottom and find out for myself. Computer, take a video to send to Fox. This is gonna drive him nuts.
Compiled. Database updated. Awaiting further submissions. Standby mode initiated.
This is Preston Richard. We hope you enjoyed tonight's episode of Bards Atlas. The Bridge in the Sky was inspired by concept art from Riot Games, creator of the popular League of Legends. This episode was written by Preston Richard and performed by A.B. Narayan. Music and editing by Preston Richard. Additional music by A.B. Narayan. Bards Atlas is a narrative and lore-building podcast that follows Fox and Eli, two traveling bards seeking new knowledge and stories across the universe. If you'd like to get in touch with us or submit a work of art to inspire a future episode, send an email to bardsatlas@gmail.com or find us on Facebook and Twitter. Don't forget to leave a comment and a rating on iTunes. It'll really help us out a lot. And as always, thank you so much for listening.